Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the Pacific Championship Series. And if you're wondering why we are on broadcast today, we still have some very important business to settle. Regular season ended yesterday, but today we still have 3 tiebreakers to go, and only 3 teams have actually clinched their playoff seeding, so a lot can still be decided here. I'm going to be your host and play-by-play for the day, Clement Chu, and with me is the ever-so fabulous Nightstar. I am changing my adjective, so please give me credit for that. And before we go into the meat of the tiebreakers, a big thank you to our sponsors for making all of this possible: CTBC Bank, China Airlines, Chunghwa Telecom, and our newest addition in Caliber. Of course, our organizers at Riot Games, Karina and LYB. You guys deserve a ton of credit too for putting this all together. Now we go into the tiebreakers. 3 matches to decide it all between the 8th place, who's actually going to make it into playoffs, the 4th place, and also who gets the 2nd seed at the top of the bracket.
Yeah, 2 of these are going to be really, really important. Of course, the first one determines who actually makes it into playoffs, and the last one of the day is going to be determine who actually gets that first round bye. However, the one in between, we might see a little bit of smoke and mirrors, perhaps, since these are going to be 2 teams that are going to be playing each other in the first round.
Yeah, that's very interesting to note. We will be going through the standings once again. PSG Talon, of course, flawless split. Congratulations to them. The teams that are in question about playing tiebreakers today are the 2nd place Machi Esports and Megabank Beyond Gaming. Even though Machi is listed above them, Megabank Beyond Gaming actually holds the 2-0 in terms of the head-to-head. And then we have Boom Esports and Taipei J Team, which are going to be playing for 4th place. Very important for them. It's more about side selection rather than skipping around. So like you said, the last one of the day between Machi and Megabank is probably a little bit more hyped up. And the last one, in the terms of the standings, is who actually makes it into the postseason. Impunity Esports and LYB currently at 9th and 8th. They have to figure out who's actually going to be moving on and keeping their world's dreams alive.
World streams are going to be pretty far off, but to even think about that, you do have to crack into playoffs.
Starts here.
Yeah, exactly. So, and even then, you're going to be starting in the lower bracket. So it's a very tough climb regardless. But to dive into this first matchup, of course, it's just 2 very different teams, I feel, as far as trajectory goes. Impunity definitely on the downslide as of late, and it feels like they just keep on finding a new low. Whereas on the flip side, LYB, they've been slowly grinding their way back up, and they've even been pretty successful at contesting a lot of these mid-upper pack teams as well.
Well, we will see as the team from Singapore finds their positions here. Top King, Korean Import, Epic, Moon Black, Boreku, and Kralix. We did have the bot lane come in on week 5, so very late addition to the squad. I think it's hard to say. I think the players show potential, but the swap itself is a little bit worrisome to see such a late change in the split, and unfortunately they haven't been able to impact the standings as you mentioned. Impunity are on a bit of a slide, 5-loss streak so far. This is their final chance to redeem their season.
Boreku, I would say the substitution is more of a draft difference rather than a gameplay difference. His 3 games so far has been 2 on Seraphine and 1 on Ashe, so putting more emphasis on utility bot laners rather than a lot of what we saw from Blaze, which were the Philios, the Varus, the Jinx. So a lot more carry focus when it came to his champion selection. We'll see if it remains the same as far as the theme goes when it comes to this last game. But over on the flip side, we do have LYB Esports on the up and up. They are Kanji, Dodoy, Xyliath, Dawn, and Aiden. This bot lane matchup, Dawn, he's been a lot more aggressive, and he does like playing those carry champions. And one champion that I hope doesn't go into his hands would be that Ziggs, because yesterday's Ziggs, while they did win, I'm going to say I wasn't enthused by it.
Yeah, they had a bit of a rough time there, just being completely bullied out by Alpha Esports bot lane, and they couldn't go back to their own lane past level 4. So definitely not the strongest laning part of LYB. I think we can say that for sure. It looks like the team is still having fun though, having a laugh here and there. I will say for this team is that they have a great sense of when to go all in team fights. They will just rush at you, full steam ahead, and that is kind of their strongest point on the map. On the other hand, I think for Impunity, they're very creative in terms of their draft. They have a lot of wonky picks, and we're going to be taking a look at the head-to-head between the two junglers. For his Trundle pick, and on the other hand, you have Dodoy with his winning Diana and Olaf.
And this is the matchup here for today. It has to be how Epic deals with Dodoy in this jungle head-to-head, because Dodoy, he's really been climbing up the ladder as of late. His performances just keep getting better, and part of it is the fact that his team's really starting to help facilitate his early aggression. When he goes in for invades, his team is there to back him up now, instead of before where he would kind of go on these adventures and he was on a solo adventure, to say the least. Whereas on the flip side for Epic, he's been playing a lot for the team. His routine is he goes, clears his camps, hits level 3, and walks mid, gets Moonblack his reset so he doesn't lose lane too hard.
That is unfortunately quite true. You know, looking at the stats, there is actually a marked difference between the two junglers here. Dodoy actually holding his team quite strong at 56% of the first blood rate, while on Impunity side, they're much lower, and they actually have the lowest jungle control out of any team in the PCS. So you definitely see Epic as more about holding the hands of Impunity. And again, we are going to see a utility jungle come out here. The Volibear getting locked in, while also taking away Xyliath's LeBlanc and Dodoy's Diana. We have talked about just the winning champions from Dodoy, and they're pretty much all gone.
Yeah, those are the really big champions, as Impunity also lock in the first pick Volibear. His Volibear has been really insane, and means that he won't get that into his hands. Over on the flip side, Kanji, he's locked in the Varus for Dawn here. I think this is a really nice pickup because it allows you to play safe, allows you to play slow in that bot lane, also allows your support to roam if need be, and they go ahead, follow up with the Renekton. So decent early game here, early mid game power coming in from LYB, and that's really where they want to hit. That's kind of just how they play. They play more for that mid game than a lot of these other teams, especially Impunity, who tend to draft more late games, such as that is here.
Yeah, early game's not really the friend of Impunity. They like to go into the late game. They actually have a pretty decent mid to late game rating. A lot of people might not know this, but their mid to late game rating is actually even better than JT, which is kind of mind-boggling to me, but it's statistically true. So, you know, this is a team that definitely wants to take things a little bit slower. I think they have a lot of coordination when it actually goes there. The main hurdle is still the laning phase for them. On the other hand, LYB going with a very aggressive early game. The classic tower dive combo coming out here, and just a small thing to point out, but Xyliath and Kanji both can play this Renekton. In terms of the bans, they are taking away Kalista, just making sure they cover all of their bases in terms of that bot lane laning phase. We don't really know what Bareku plays outside the Seraphine, so just to make sure that Varus isn't going to have a hard time, they're going to take that away.
I would assume they also go ahead and ban away the Ashe pick, which is a pick that can definitely pick on that bottom lane, but it does look like they're going to turn their attention over to top lane, take away his Jace. Could mean that they want to send this Renekton top side. However, based on the matchups, you can definitely move this Renekton either to mid or top, and some of the differences in playstyles can kind of fluctuate based on that. If you throw it into the mid lane, you're looking at a more PSG playstyle where you're playing for your jungler very hard. You're trying to get as much of that invade power as possible, being able to get control of both crabs and just make sure you suffocate the jungle role over on the other side. And it looks like it's going to be a Braum pick for Aiden, trying to be as defensive as possible. And it really does feel like this is going to be a Renekton top to just hard force topside.
Yeah, it could be for sure. On the other hand, we will have Bareku going back to his utility champions like you mentioned. And now's the big question, because between these two teams, they are 1-1 in the head-to-head matchup. And the big breakdown point has been that top lane. Whoever has gotten counter pick in this top side has gone on to win the game and have a very strong performance compared to the opposition. And we're going to get a great blind pick here in the Tahm Kench from Top King. Last time around, when he got the counter, he went 7 kills, 7, 2, and 3 on the Lucian. And
they had it red. They had it red. You could see TG. He was just like giving high fives all around, and it looks like they completely called this pick, and they go for an R5 Trundle pick, which is actually just brilliant here in the head-to-head matchup because of how much power it has just in the draft, and not just that Tahm Kench matchup. You look at the Volibear, if he jumps in, he's going to lose all his stats. If Kralix ever goes for an aggressive hook prematurely, he's going to lose all his stats too after he procs Aftershock. So this is actually just such a great draft coming in from LYB, and I definitely give them a lot of advantages going into game.
Yeah, you have to give massive credit to TG right there. You know, was so happy going across the board. He knew this was coming. That was the big question in this matchup. Was Kanji going to come out ahead, or was Top King going to come out ahead? And how do you deal with a big stat stick that wants to 1v1 you? You go for an even bigger stick, and that stick happens to be Trundle. So, really interesting matchup here on the top side. We haven't seen this matchup specifically, but given Trundle's reputation as a tank killer, it should go in favor of Kanji.
And this is also a pick that just like not only murders tanks, it's so annoying to deal with depending on what kind of build he ends up going for. Most likely it's going to be like a Divine Sunder into a full tank. But we've seen some wilder builds before. In way back in the past, there was Blade of Ruined King sort of build to deal with Mundo, to try and just whittle him down in the 1v1, and that definitely could be a possibility here if you just want to side lane non-stop, but not exactly LYB's playstyle. We'll see what this build adaptation will be, but so far it's looking very comfortable, and it's going to come down to, for the side of Impunity, something that we've seen occasionally but not consistently, and that is it's going to be Moonblack that has to carry the damage load.
Yeah, Moonblack does love his Azir, has been his go-to champion after that Heimerdinger is completely banned out. We did have Dawn with the full wheel of crying emotes. We're going to be taking a look at the runes here. Very peculiar. We are going to get Epic with the Predator and Top King with the Ignite. Walk me through this. What are they trying to do here?
Top King just trying to make sure he has those extra battle stats, especially once Kanji pops that Subjugate. The Ignite's going to help combat some of that healing coming out from that ultimate, and Epic with this Predator. He's going to be playing essentially Trundle, but in a different form. He's going to try and run lane to lane, run up and down the river, and try and non-stop gank these lanes.
All right, we'll see if those ganks go successful, as LYB does start off on the bottom side of the map. Perhaps to be expected, as we have highlighted, probably the most important matchup here is going to be the top side. On the other hand, Impunity is going to do the same. However, they do not leash, so it should be expected. And a little bit of a lane push here. You know, we've talked about the individual lanes and the matchups, but I do want to go over these comps again and kind of figure out their win conditions here. What do you see as Impunity's sort of formula to taking down this tiebreaker?
Usually you would say that with a top jungle duo of Tahm Kench and Volibear, you're looking to try and just scrap early on before the other side gets items, because you just have better stats, raw stats. However, in this case, against a Trundle Nidalee, they've got a lot of damage and a lot of damage neutralization as well. Of course, the Q coming in from Kanji is going to reduce the auto attack damage or just strip away AD, so you're just naturally doing a lot less damage than what you might expect. So it really just comes down to making sure you get Moonblack off to a good start, get him his 1 or 2 items, and then you put yourself in a position that you can really start to take these 3v3s or more like 5v5 setups. But they do have to be careful because, again, their damage drop-off is pretty immense.
Okay, we'll see how Impunity can make it through this. You know, relying on Moonblack to carry you in the late game, it's probably not the way that we have seen Impunity win most of their games. They are much more reliant on Top King, sort of solo carrying them at times. So we'll see if that plan does work out here. In the meantime, Dodoy is going to find Epic in the jungle. There will be a scuffle for this scuttle. But since Moonblack is arriving here first, we see him just backing out. In the meantime, level 3 on Krelix as he goes in on level 2, coming in from the Braum. This is not a fight that LYB won. Instant flashes out.
Gonna flash out. Does get some decent return damage, but most of the damage focused onto Aiden is gonna really prevent him from going too aggressive here. As Dodoy, he's gonna get shoved out of his jungle. He's gonna lose this next grab.
We are gonna get a skirmish, but Dodoy doesn't land anything. And on the flip side, Xyliath is able to get out. I don't think the Stormbringer, the E even landed from the volley bear there, so does expend his flash, but keeps himself alive. And importantly for Dodoy, he does manage to split the scuttles.
Yeah, that's actually extremely pivotal for him, just to be able to keep up in that CS department. And another interesting thing is going to be Moonblack taking the Conqueror here, so deciding that he doesn't need either the Airy or the Comet. Of course, it's pretty low range champions that he's dealing with on the flip side in the Trundle, Renekton, and Braum. So just trying to go for, I guess, max damage and sustain. Although if that was the case, I'd okay.
You have to flash it from Krelix. Aiden already lost his earlier on.
So long.
He's just going to take one for the team as he tries to push the wave all the way in. Not going to happen. Impunity with first blood.
Good first blood pickup going in for Impunity there. Epic. Just, I mean, it's not really a surprising gank there, although it was a bit surprise for Aiden. They're gonna lose that first blood. Thankfully, it is an Ashe, so it's not like you're going to get hard hammered, and it does mean that Dodoy, he can look to try and steal a camp here. And does mean hopefully he's able to really snowball himself, but we should be looking for perhaps a little bit more when it comes to trying to get aggressive and find these skirmishes. But because of Moonblack being able to constantly shove in, it's actually helped this jungle matchup quite a bit for Epic.
Yeah, he hasn't really lost that much. 2 camps behind, but since he got the gang down, I think we can call that sort of even. In the meantime, I do like the point that you mentioned that LYB probably need to be accelerating this game a little bit. Impunity, as you identified, their biggest win condition is going to be Moonblack coming in. Xyliath is stunned, but the Sky Splitter again doesn't really land. Krelix hook goes wide, and Xyliath without the flash and Dominus actually survives here. I'm actually really surprised he managed to do that.
Actually able to get out of there. That's going to help out a lot now that he's level 6. Gets that extra survivability, but you could definitely see what Impunity were trying to do with that gank. Try and take advantage of him not being in 6, but now Kanji's in the mid lane looking for a possible opening.
He's not spotted, but we do have the pings coming down, so they definitely sense that Xyliath's pathing is a little bit weird here, and finally Kanji does make himself known. We do have Volley Bear waiting around the corner to see if Epic wants to do anything about this one. Krelix just going for the straight up hook. They do have the advantage in lane already, going right into it. Ignite goes down, but Krelix actually losing HP a little bit faster. The piercing arrow doesn't land, and Bareku is going to find another kill into this bottom lane. Oh, that was a close one coming in from Krelix, but they get away with it, and that's 2 kills into Bareku's pocket.
And it's really just a target selection there. Dawn unable to get around the Nautilus to actually try and get DPS down onto Bareko, and that means Ashe just continuously fires those frost shots straight into the Braum. So we get to see the replay. Yeah, they're able to get Krelix low, but the miss-piercing arrow means that this kill just goes unreturned, and Dawn can't do anything about it. But up in this top side, I mean, nothing should happen here because it is kind of just like going to be back and forth farm out play style. But because of that, we see Kanji go for a cult, which means he's going to scale a lot faster and get to that mid-game point before this Tahm Kench. And once that first dragon fight comes, or that first Rift Herald fight comes, I think that's going to be the real big deciding point for a lot of how the rest of this game is going to be going tempo-wise.
I do want to point out that Top King just instantly used his TP towards the top. I really like this play from him because it sets his team up in such a strong position for the Herald play. You do have the bottom lane already rotating for Impunity coming into this one. Kanji, he really does not have combat stats at this point, so we'll see how LYB want to respond here, but it seems like they are inching themselves into the fight. They've got everyone here.
They have brought the entire crew over, so it does look like they're interested in contesting, even pulling Dawn over. This is definitely
Black getting a bit of damage, but here goes the arrow as Kralix does find Xyliath in the front line, but he's a tanky Renekton, and he stays alive for quite a long time. Finally, Moonblack goes into the backline, gets a two-man knockback into the team. Top King gets the Devour, and that's going to be 5-1 right now in favor of Impunity.
Yeah, this was my concern here, was that the bot lane difference is pretty stark. And the fact that you do have a lot more combat stats on this Ashe, more so than the Varus, and because you do end up pulling your bot lane over, you're not looking to funnel farm and plates into your AD carry. Instead, you end up throwing yourself into a very dire situation. And that first fight we were talking about, like, that's going to set the pace for this game. It goes in favor of Impunity in pretty dominant fashion, but neither team claimed the Herald, which means we're going to see yet another fight possible.
Yeah, this time around, we do have a lot less summoners on the side of LYB.
And no ult.
Though Impunity is stuck in a pretty awkward position. They have to walk down this ramp if they want to contest. Top King's going in first, misses the Q, and we do have Dodo picking up the Herald. That should be the end of the fight. Let's see if Epic with Predator can't find Xyliath, but the hook goes just a little bit short. And LYB, they do get a great consolation prize, but the question really is at what cost, as we do see Breaker, who did not join the fight here, was solo pushing in the bottom side.
Yeah, and it looks like the side of Impunity, they're like, well, even if they do get the Herald, we already got a bunch of kills the first time around, and we can get a bunch of farm the second time around, and that's what they settle for. Instead of over-investing more resources to try and get yet another fight, they feel comfortable with how much gold they accumulated the first time around. And to be honest, I would be too, because you have a 2k gold advantage now, and in this bottom lane, you also have a completed shield bow on this Ashe. This Ashe is definitely online, ready to do a solid number when it comes to the next team fight situation, which naturally should be this Dragon, as Dragon is still up even at 11.5 minutes.
Over 2,000 gold advantage, as we can see on the graph here, and it's barely 11 minutes into the game, so a great start coming in from Impunity. And as we've laid out earlier, LYB is the one that should be looking for early advantages here. They don't really have the best of scaling. They have to go up against a Nazir in the late game. Not what you want to see, and I think it's fair to say that overall their composition does lack a bit of damage. Yep. We'll see how they can actually accelerate this pace as they are going up onto Top King. The spear does land. Top King still has that gray health and shield available, so he can still pop the fixed in at any time. It's going to take his sweet time though, and this is a great opportunity for LYB as Xyliath finds some snacks in the river. It looks like
he found a treasure trove there.
Really nice amount of gold. In the meantime, LYB, they know they're making a cross-map play, so they are doing rotations in the bot lane. vacating the bot, and Epic unfortunately doesn't get anything here. First tower is still secured by the Herald, and LYB now rounding down on that gold deficit really quickly. They are going to get a second charge. No one's here.
Yeah, getting 2 here would be massive.
It goes down even. They're going in onto Top King. He gets stunned and just killed. Thick Skin not even used. What a great find by Kanji, and then you saw the stun just stopping the Abyssal dive from coming out. So LYB overtake the gold lead and also the getaway.
Yeah, and that's just a really nice hold of the stun coming in from Xylieth. If you are the Tahm Kench, you just don't have any play options if the Renekton holds all the cards, because if he tries to use Thick Skin, he gets his shield stripped away by the stun. If he tries to go for the Abyssal Dive, well, he can't, because that gets interrupted by the stun still. So Xylieth plays that incredibly well. They get themselves 2 towers. That helps recuperate a lot of extra gold because of the fact you have bonus money coming in on tier 2 towers nowadays. It does give you a lot more power when it comes to these 2-turret Rift Herald pushes.
Oh, do see an early teleport here just to contest the Drake as Moonblack does come in. The team hasn't started this one up just yet, and it doesn't look like LYB actually want to contest it, so they will let this one just go. In the meantime, looking at the top side, the gold distribution is very different on the 2 teams. We have a very bottom-heavy Impunity coming in, and on the other side for LYB, both the top and junglers getting to their mythic items first. So, you know, typically in the early game, when I see a top side for bottom side trade, I actually favor the top side, because bruisers, they, you know, with solo EXP, with levels, it can be a lot more impactful than Bureku, but we haven't really seen him in a 5v5 situation just yet. We'll have to keep our eyes close on that one.
Yeah, and
see
we also
Ashe
haven't
can make a splash.
We haven't really seen him put in a position where he's able to have an impact as well, because the previous games he was on 2 games of Seraphine where the team never really played around him. The first game, I believe, he was put onto Jinx, or not Jinx, Ashe, and I mean the game kind of also ran away from him in that one as well. So this time around, on even gold footing, he's got a lead over his respective laner. This is his best opportunity to show us why he was brought into the roster and what he can do.
A full 5-man stack by Impunity in the mid lane. I've got to say, this is something we've seen multiple times before, where Impunity, if they're not certain, they do play like an NA team and they will just group up together. Didn't really get much done as we see the engage onto Dodoy. He goes down after the flash, just trying to hard face check into that brush. That was interesting. As Impunity successfully get the pick, and they're just going to continue to chase LYB away, now looking at this mid lane tower.
Definitely a strange one there. One of the things when you face an ARAM is, well, don't face check around that ARAM lane, and that's exactly what Dodoy does. He gets picked off here. That's so much gold going into the hands of Epic there, and yes, unfortunately it goes into Epic's hands, but helps him catch up because of just the massive farm gap that Dodoy did have in that matchup. Now down 1,000 gold. That's going to be LYB as they try and set up. Maybe they look for this next dragon to be really aggressive around, as they will have, of course, Cull completed by Kanji, so that's going to be his big power spike. And as you mentioned before, you're going to get a couple more levels on your bruisers, on your solo laners, which is going to be a little bit more impactful than getting more gold onto your AD carry, especially on a utility AD carry such as Ashe.
We are going to see another uncontested objective going towards the way of Impunity. It seems like LYB's game plan right now is just to hard farm Kanji, get him as fed as possible. Xylieth with another face check gets brought back by Moonblack and just goes down. Not sure why you would face check that when, you know, Herald just went down. These face checks have been so costly for LYB, and I don't really see any rhyme or reason for them, to be honest.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit baffling here. LYB, while they've had a pretty solid start when it comes to the farm department, that top half of the map, and also, of course, that draft. Unfortunately, they've kind of tossed a couple of those advantages away, and now things are in favor of the side of Impunity when it comes to gold, and they don't exactly have a way to deal with this Azir come late game, or even this Ashe, as they just don't have a ton of backline access. It's very much a front-to-back team, and you would have to favor this Impunity side if that's going to be true.
Yeah, if you're talking about objective fights, I don't see how you get on this Ashe on the side of LYB. There really is not a lot of ability. Maybe you could fish for some lucky spears coming in from Dodoy, but that seems pretty far-fetched. I was chuckling a bit just then because of how both teams have dropped double pinks, basically at the exact same location. So these are both squads that like to flaunt their bling if they have them. And, you know, they're like, one pink ain't really enough. We're gonna drop 2 pinks. So it's kind of funny to see both sides doing that. That used to be a Hong Kong attitude special, by the way, because they were known as kind of like the high salary cap team.
I would say that the double pinks or the double control wards is definitely a symptom of perhaps the pressure sort of mounting, you know, communication, or even you could say some of these face checks, just, you know, not paying attention enough to either the mini-map or even just the announcer.
We do have the flash in from Don. They will catch out Moonblack, but Aiden will go down first. Great play there, and Stormbringer goes on, disabling the tower. Xylath goes in for a massive 4-man Ruthless Predator. That's not going to really heal him up enough to survive.
Yeah.
Not even with the War Drinker is he going to live. Oh, but Kanji gets the full 6-second filler onto Top King. Top King without the flash got nowhere to go. Will go down. Krelix with another great hook, but Kanji with a flash is going to get out there. At the end of the day, it will be a 1-for-3 trade plus the mid lane tower. Massive advantage going over to Impunity.
Massive win coming in for the Impunity side as Dawn, he flashes forward, goes for the ult, and unfortunately he didn't press tab, didn't know that Moonblack already had a stopwatch available to him. Moonblack with a very intelligent buy, knowing that the next fight is going to be very critical, and then we get to see Top King pinned to a wall, stuck between filth and a hard place. Truly tragic. However, the consequence was because the subjugate was used onto the Tahm Kench. When he got hooked again, he didn't have the subjugate to...
Oh, do you have a TP coming in here? Moonblack's going to be a little bit slow, really, but the arrow will find its mark. Moonblack once again going over for the Shurima dive is going to get gone. Not even the score, just getting gone the whole way. And then Dodoy tries to fly in for the counter engage. They will get Krelix in the very end, but no, it actually flashes out. Top King even goes in for a little bit more, and Dodo and Xylath are on the wrong side of the map. Impunity just completely decimating LYB in this fight. Double kill over to Moonblack. This Azir is really showing up huge here, and we have another Abyssal dive. Top King does go down, but it does take Xylath with him, and that's the triple plus the depth chart. Dodo does get over the wall, though.
Okay. Yeah, barely makes it out there. And yet another big team fight win coming in for the Impunity side. And this time around, they also make it out with very low health bars. But you can see here, like, this is what Moonblack is good at. He's good at making calls, making the faster rotation over to the play. And LYB, they're just getting a little bit greedy, trying to claim all this side lane farm. But because of that, their mid lane just ends up encroaching way too far up the river. They get punished hard for that play, and everything's just falling apart for the side of LYB.
Really well done by Impunity. That pull into the choke on the right side of mid lane, absolutely beautiful. 2 Sand Soldiers and nothing can chase them down. And I feel like that's the problem that we've highlighted with this LYB composition. They are much more of an early game tempo composition, and they did not have a lead in the early game whatsoever. You know, I think it's fair to say that even though Top King his scoreline isn't pretty. I felt like that teleport early onto Herald was just so critical for them to get themselves into this position. And Impunity really showing that they can carry beyond the top lane. They've got multiple carries in different positions as Krelix is going to come across the wall. Great coordination. They are going to find Aiden. But meanwhile, in the backline, Dawn with a chain of corruption. This fight might be turning around as Krelix goes down. Moonblack finally gets onto the spot. He's trying to fight his way over towards the ramp, but gets caught, and he will die. Both solo laners being destroyed by Dawn. Breaku now on the run. He gets slowed down by the Winter's Wrath. Kanji is coming back in. Aiden will stay alive. The spear goes wide, but Xyliath is in. He falls down at the very end. Breaku goes unstoppable before finally dropping down. Impunity, it looked so good, but they just chased a little bit too far.
They chased too far. They end up overextending way too much there. And yes, while Breaku is able to get one, unfortunately unable to finish the job, get out of there in time because, well, it's definitely well worth it. But now Epic's still hanging around.
Epic is coming in, and he does get the Baron restart. He didn't have flash, he didn't have ultimate, but Liam back up anyway. Oh,
they just didn't have the health bars to continue with that. And I initially thought this was going to be a really good pick here, but it is still a Braum, and he does have a lot of innate tankiness during the time he does have the door up, and he soaks up so much damage. And where you look at the positioning, Breaku, Epic, they're zoned off from the rest of the fight. They're able to just collapse onto the Zir from that angle. Now Breaku, yes, he trades out one, but you're more than happy to trade 1-for-1 in this small situation because of the fact that you get 700 gold onto your AD carry.
Yeah, that was a very awkward fight for Impunity. They had tanks on the top side, and then their carry is completely exposed on the bottom side. So it's a little bit unfortunate. I felt like if they chose a bit better terrain, they wouldn't have gone to that. But in the meantime, Epic, with an epic save, does stop Leah from just snowballing onto the Baron, and they still have the Azir. So, you know, definitely Impunity can still come back from this situation. Meanwhile, Kanji is split pushing on the bot. Ooh, like you mentioned, the ward is there. Impunity do know about it, but they actually repositioned their pink, so unable to clear it out in time as we see Krelix going in once more, but it doesn't seem like the rest of the team is just here to follow. Once again, they're fighting on the ramp, and Krelix going down incredibly low. Xyliath does find the stun into the back line. Moonblack is out of the fight already. Top Game goes down, and Liam continued to chase through. The Ashe is dead. Moonblack is getting chased by Kanji. Triple kill for the Trundle, and Epic is the last one to carry Impunity's playoffs hopes. He goes down as well. That is going to be an ace for only Xyliath. Once again, Impunity on the same spot, make the same mistake.
And Xyliath, he turns himself into an absolute martyr. 1-6-10, yes, but the impact he's had in these fights, putting a lot of pressure, burning very key cooldowns as well. We're going to see the replay here. Once again, it's this Braum that baits him in. They land the hook onto him, but he's just the juicy target to hook, line, and sinker the side of Impunity. Xyliath gets very good Ruthless Predator there, but then Breaku on the Ashe, no mobility. The moment he steps too far forward, Kanji with the pillar throws it down, and he's trapped. And yeah, nowhere to go. That's going to be a huge swing in gold and a huge swing in momentum for the side of Liab, because now they've claimed that third dragon, or the second for themselves, but third overall, and they also have a Baron buff to work with.
It's so depressing to see this from Impunity. I don't know why they hate Aiden so much. Like, they just want him dead at all costs. It's like, the thing is, Impunity's composition, if they hold their ground, they're great, but they're not exactly the best chasing team composition. And to chase through a choke like that was just so weird to see. Krelix, oh my god, Krelix, please, keep it together. Krelix, keep it together. You guys still have a shot. You still have Moonblack, but it's
yeah. However, Clement, we haven't taken a look at builds in a while, and
Yeah,
that's definitely a
let's do
thing
that.
to look at. One of them being, well, Krelix. He doesn't have Mythic, and he has a stopwatch. So, or not a stopwatch, but a Azonia's Hourglass, which means he wants to continue going for these aggressive plays. And it's a little strange because, again, when you have Azonia's, you could just go for something like the Locket to provide more overall team fight power to your squad. I don't really like this build, Clement. I don't know how you feel.
What I think is happening is that Impunity, they think they have a massive teamfight edge, but if you actually look at their front line, they're not really that tanky. Epic is not going Aftershock. So Top King's the only target that you have to subjugate. And then Kralix is actually made of paper. So
yeah,
I feel like they
especially with this
vastly
build.
True. I feel like they've just vastly overestimated how long their front line can stay in the fight. Like that's the only reason that I have for them forcing the team fight up choke points like that. It's just not the case. Like Trundle does very well at chewing through them, and Epic just actually isn't tanky. He's not a tanky bear right there. He's not really a tank. He's just a stun bot.
Yeah, right now Epic, I mean, the Aftershock's not a real big deal because usually you would go like press the attack regardless in the jungle. So you're not going super defensive when it comes to your Keystone. But the fact that his two items are Divine Sunder and the Athenema's Chains, he's just a big health bot. Very similar to, well, Thomas Kench. And then also at the moment, like your Nautilus doesn't have a whole lot of stats to him. He's got an Hourglass. That doesn't provide a ton of defensive stats. All it does is give you pseudo tank stats because you're in stasis, but then they just turn their attention onto a different target.
Yeah, this is... I honestly felt like, Impunity were running away with the game at one point. They were up, 2,000 gold before 12 minutes, and it was up to, I think, about 3,000 after their winning fight in the mid lane where, they found a 3-for-1 trade in their favor. I thought it was going to be over really soon because you look at the side of LYB, these are not champions that scale particularly well. Like Lethality, Varus, and then you have Trundle, who's... I don't think Trundle's actually a great team fighter. Like he's pretty easy to kite into team fight. Like going against Azir, Ashe is not what you want to do as a Trundle. Yeah, it's very difficult to fight a front to back on LYB's side, but they managed to do it, and I color me pretty impressed. I think Xyliath in these teamfights has actually been pulling a lot of his weight. Usually you see Renekton's just not being able to pull their weight when it comes to like post 25 minutes in teamfights. They're not really that tanky or deal that much damage compared to other mid laners, but in all of these teamfights I think he's traded really well and always made sure to at least take Moon Black out of the fight.
And the big part here is just the fact that, well,
he goes back. Oh, here we have another attempt as this time this is a much better target, and they just kill Dawn instantly. Good find.
Yeah, very good find. I was going to say this point in time, because of the fact that they do have, or they did have the Baron buff, it allows them to just continue to push their advantages because of the side lane pressure that they have with this composition. However, with Dawn going down there, it means that they kind of have to reset here. They were looking to do so anyways, but they're going to have to reset just a little bit faster because they want to try and salvage this mid lane.
Yeah, I don't think LYB are going to be in time. Only Aiden to witness the murdering of these tier 2 tower here. LYB kind of caught with their pants down as they were trying to go for a 2-man pickoff on the bottom side, while Dawn was the actual target here. So they're a little bit slow to rotate, and Impunity are still sticking within 3,000 gold as Krelix finds Aiden once again in a ramp. Not where you want to be, as we have Kanji and Xyliath coming to close the bottleneck on the other side. Already 2 members down, a third dies, and I'm getting deja vu. I feel like I've seen this play happen multiple times, and it has never favored Impunity.
Krelix, please.
Breaku trying to get away. He still does have the arrow, but Dodoy does find him. He has the red buff. Can he kite this one out? Finally, he forces Dodoy into the stasis. Is going to be able to get away. He dodges the trap on the ground. Good situational awareness. I would have stepped on that 100% and just died. But LYB do force very late recalls, and they're going to be opening up the base.
And with Kanji's positioning, with how much damage he does as this Trundle, he just destroys towers. They're going to be able to get that inhib. They're going to be able to get this mid inhib as well. Okay, actually not the mid inhib. A little bit tragic there. Not going to lie.
That's okay, it's okay.
With only one set of super minions.
Oh no, don't show me this again.
Well,
no.
Yeah, we all know why they lost this fight. It's because they went for draw. That's really all we need to know. They got stuck in a choke. They dumped all their cooldowns onto a Braum. And what do you know? Baited once more. And for the side of LYB, like, the big consequence of not taking that second inhib is the fact that Impunity can deal with just one lane of supers very, very easily. They have the zero turret, they have a zero damage. As you can see, he's going to be able to shred these super minions relatively quickly. He even goes ahead, teleports straight back mid to try and deal with this mid lane shove.
They are setting up a potential catch here. Moonblack was spotted though, so we'll see if this actually catches LYB out by surprise. A very interesting ward in the mid lane. You can see on the top side, so they probably did catch Moonblack going into the cubby. Now it is the Death Rush coming in from LYB. They will get hawk-shotted. This is actually pretty open terrain, so maybe things will change as Impunity do decide to take the fight. The change of corruption lands onto 4. Top King goes for the backline, but Krelix is instantly killed. The Top King is in the middle of nowhere. Breaku has Kanji right on top of him. He can't kite this one. Flash in from Kanji. Breaku's gonna go down, and that's all the damage that is left. Moonblack standing his ground, but Don flashes in with the kill. That's gonna be a triple.
They're just gonna run down mid.
Their dreams and hopes are getting crushed. 40 seconds respawn timers. LYB march into the base.
I think they can do it. They've got minions coming in straight mid. One of them is a cannon minion. So if Kanji tanks up this tower, he only needs to tank up one here. They're going to be able to just end the game. This is it. LYB, make it into playoffs.
Impunity, they were the 6th seed in spring, but this time around, all eyes on LYB. They make it all the way into playoffs. The team that was in the bottom of the standings in spring now finds themselves into postseason and keeps their dreams alive at going to Worlds. I am not kidding. This is where it starts. If you believe in the Filipino success story, you have to keep your eyes on this team.
Oh my god. I am so proud of this team. They went 0-9 in the first round robin. This was a team that didn't find its first win until so late in the season, and they managed to climb their way back. They found 4 wins, 4 out of 9 in that second half. They make it to tiebreak, and they managed to win the tiebreak. LYB, what a story.
It really is.
I don't have all the words to describe how proud I am of the boys.
Honestly, the only question is, did you believe? That's all I want to say. You know, did you believe them? We saw the improvements right from the start of the split. Once they started Kanji over Speltz, I felt like LYB were on a completely different level. And you could see even through the first round, they were improving, they were getting better. Their laning phase was a tremendous difference. We talked about this in the first round, that their laning phase actually got a 4,000 gold improvement compared to their own selves in spring split. That's so insane, but and that also goes to show you how bad they were in spring, but that's also true. But you know, they had a massive overhaul to the way they played, and they really allowed themselves to shine when it came to those team fights. They never backed out. Like, this is not a team that ever plays scared, and just keeping that spirit together, you know, developing their laning phase, I think it finally got them to the point where they could overcome their obstacles. And finally we have LYB, and the Philippines in the postseason.
Yeah, big congrats go out to them. They just improved so much. Even in that first half of the split, I believe they were probably one of our better early game teams, even compared to some of the bigger names, right? Your Machis, your J teams, you know, especially
Your
J
Booms.
team. Let's just say their early game has definitely slowed down quite a bit. So I'm not even surprised. Like LYB were finally able to put all the pieces together to scrape those 4 wins to make it into tiebreak. Because when you have repeated early game leads, you will eventually find a way to carry them through the rest of the game. You will figure out a way to cash in. Whereas over on the flip side, like Impunity, it was a much different issue, right? They were constantly behind early game. They had to constantly dig themselves out of holes, and that's just mentally just such a much bigger struggle.
Yeah, we did talk about Impunity's struggles throughout the split. It mainly did come down to the pre-15 minutes. They're still statistically the worst early game team in the PCS, and you know that really took a huge chunk out of their playmaking ability. I feel like Epic was the one that was most impacted because he had to give up a ton of his jungle just to keep his lanes alive. I was unfortunate at the reality of the situation. Like I think you can criticize Epic himself for like you know, not really being able to be a huge impact factor, but at the same time it's pretty evident that he had to sink a lot of his late game in to sort of plaster over the early game. And this is unfortunately one of those games where I felt like Impunity had a very high chance of taking down. If you look at the early game, they were doing completely fine, but then it was those super forced team fights up ramps again and again and again that just spelled doom for this team. You're going into a late game where Bareku was about to carry. He was on an item lead over Dawn, where Moonblack was doing great stuff on the Azir, but then the team fights just fell apart. And congratulations to Dodoy. You know, I think he is the spirit, the heart of the LYB squad, and a very well-deserved MVP here at 7-1 and 12.
Very well done. He had 95% kill participation, and this is also a LYB team that they have overall very high kill participation because of the fact that they end up grouping up more often than not to find these team plays rather than the individual plays. But the change has been immense. They've started to play a lot around Dodoy, and yes, he had that mishap around that mid lane, but that was the only blip. As you can see, he only had 1 death.
In the final team fight, he also chased down Bareku very easily. So, you know, unfortunate way to end the split for Impunity. I felt like they were going through a lot of different changes, trying to incorporate Moonblack and Epic, and at the end of the split, also trying out a new bottom lane. So, hopefully, they will make it back into the PCS, and they will show us a much more stronger and a much more coherent team coming into 2022. But this will be the end of their journey so far. On the flip side, congratulations again to LYB for making it to the postseason. That, you know, it's a long way out, but it does open their chances to Worlds. I'm just putting that out there. It's 1 in a million, but it's possible. So congratulations to LYB for achieving that. Don't go anywhere, guys, as we will be coming up with the second tiebreaker of the day, coming up between J Team and Boom Esports for 4th place.